Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. We are kicking off season 42 of Alliance War. This is a season that has a few new things. First of all, 7 stars exist. So there's going to be a couple 7-star defenders on the map, and additionally we are bringing our first 7-star champion to war. This is Sunspot's debut, which is pretty exciting. The other thing is we have a new tactic. It's the prowess one, which came out of the gate quite strong and quite scary, especially for a few select nodes. And then kabam, kind of overcompensated with the nerf of it to the point where like the tactic really doesn't make much of a difference, especially if you're using a champion like Omega Sentinel, if she's not banned, one of the best champions for the tactic itself. So we'll just have to see how that all pans out, because I do think it's going to lead to a lot of stressful wars where there aren't that many deaths, and like if you die more than 2 times, you can pretty much count on tying or losing, it seems like, this season. But anyway, we have 4 fights. It's a pretty fun team. Kingpin is in his whitelist season. I did get to bring Omega Sentinel with the tactic, and then, like I said, Sunspot. I went into that first fight, and the game was just a little slow to load. So even though I was boosted, I exited out, played a couple fights. After I reloaded the game, things started to feel a little bit better, and I still had plenty of time on my boosts. So going into this first fight, Kingpin versus Knull just about anywhere is a great matchup because of all of the non-damaging debuffs that are on you. And the way we're going to play this fight is basically stun immune style, so that we never trigger masochism at all. So I've taken bosses before, like Knull bosses with Kingpin, and this is essentially like a smaller version of that. So you see we're blocking. He didn't throw a heavy there, but I noticed that he had a medium ender, and you know, even with this overpower at the start, we're critting for 8k on our lights and 12k on our mediums. And the goal is to just shorten your combos and push them to special 2s, so you don't have to worry about corruption at all. But so far we've only used basic hits and got him halfway down. Now we're going to throw a special 2, get that unstoppable. Unstoppable helps you find an opening, like a counter punch charge, and that's enough to get him down. So yeah, Knull is not much of a problem in this season when you can use Kingpin. Next up, we have a 7-star Mantis on this mini-boss node, which I believe has changed a little bit. So they added the drip feed placebo and things like that. Now on a champ that's not a mystic, it's really not going to interact at all with how Mantis is going to work. Essentially, the only node here is the personal space regen, which I could see, if you're playing too slowly, could get a little out of hand and extend the fight. Essentially, the goal with Sunspot here is just to get her down quickly. We do have the ability to put the incinerates on her, which can control the regen with Despair Mastery. And I did pop on a 150 boost, which ends up not being necessary. And of course, we have the regen boost, because when you're regenerating, it turns off her Tranquilize. So we're starting off just going to knock her down to get the armor from the tactic. That's going to help us remove prowess from her. And then we're going to basically throw one special 2 after the special 1, and I'm pushing her to her special 2, which is the easier one to bait and to avoid the encroaching sleep. And yeah, this special 2 is basically going to take her down. So I wasn't sure about this damage, but even with 0 crits, 1 special 1, 1 special 2 was enough to get her down. So 7-star versus 7-star, we had the same challenge rating. We had no issues there. They actually gave her the armor increase for her stat focus, which was interesting. I think most people are doing block penetration. But either way, yeah, Sunspot's debut was in and out, over quick, 100% health at the end. No issues there. So finally, we're going to be taking path 9B. And I did delay a little bit because I went to bed early. So actually the global is down for this node. This is a very clear path split, because the next fight is Thing that Kingpin works for, and obviously you don't want to use Kingpin against Jubilee because she will punish your shrugging. So we're only immune to the bleed here, but the bleeds will regen us, so I'm not scared of occasionally hitting her during the shock phase to prevent getting backed up. There we only took 1 shock, there's 2 shocks. Now we're in the bleed phase, so we can hit her normally. You can see the bleeds are regenning us. Because of despair, it's blunted a little bit, but essentially the attack tactic is actually hampering her damage a little bit. We threw off a special 2, and it only placed the 2 plasmas. That would be a lot more if she was able to keep these prowess up, but because we're removing the prowess, you know, it's kind of hampering our damage, like I said. But yeah, I was expecting to take a little bit of chip damage from here. The fight, the AI was just sort of a little passive here, and, you know, baiting specials. We kind of ruined the entire phase with the bleed there, so we're back in the shock phase. And, you know, I figured this is the only Omega Sentinel fight, so I wasn't too worried about taking a little bit of shock damage, and, you know, we could essentially just get her down with basic hits. And everything will be fine. There's really not a lot of danger in this fight. I could see in the old version of the tactic, if the tactic was still active, you know, her continually gaining power could be a little bit of a problem. But she's about to go down, and we lost about 40% health or so. And yeah, it just goes to show that being half immune and being able to control the prowess is enough in that type of fight. And then finally, we're going up against Thing. He doesn't have the tactic at all, obviously, and this is just going to be a normal shock and bleed version of Hazard Shift. We don't have the hood synergy, which means, kind of like in the last fight, we can expect to lose a little bit of health here and there as we have some of the bleeds and shocks ticking away our health, because we're not always going to be able to shrug them. But the thing with Kingpin is he doesn't really need the hood synergy, because if you get enough debuffs on you, then you purify all of them and you go into overpower anyway. So our first shock sticks on us, the second shock sticks on us, so bad luck so far. The third shock also sticks on us, so we haven't shrugged a single debuff yet, which is kind of funny. But you're going to see it doesn't really matter. The name of the game is just to count your rock stacks. Like, that's really it. And I decide to not throw specials because the special 1 puts the ability reduction on him, which means the rock stack counting isn't as reliable. Even though the fight would go faster, there's more damage from that degen, and you would potentially not proc protection. I opted for not throwing specials at all so that we could just very safely count the rock stacks, and I knew that basic hits, for the most part, weren't going to trigger protection unless if I got like multiple overpowers. Yeah, so that's basically the name of this game. You can see we did tick away a really solid amount of health there off of just the debuffs, but it's not that big of a deal because, like I said, you totally get rid of them eventually and then benefit from the attack bonus, and we're good to go. I did hold this special 3 just in case, you know, something went crazy and I got cornered. The special 3 is a good way to kind of reset the fight, but we don't really need to use it. I'm just kind of laughing at how bad the RNG is, though, because I feel like every single shock stuck on Kingpin. But you can see you don't need the hood synergy to get through fights like that. So I was one of the last people to fight because the boss was already down. And good news is that BG3 in our first war got a donut. So nobody died this war. Really solid plan. Everyone played exceptionally well. And the Alliance ended up winning. It ended up being pretty close. I think both of us had a little bit of rust from the off season of 3 weeks off, but we did win 5-3, and there was a few defensive kills that happened at the last minute, which really secured the win. It really looked like it was going to be a 3-3 loss based on the tiebreaker, but we did end up winning. So great start to the season. Going up against Legion, I feel like we're very evenly matched. Like, in my recent memory, we basically could win or lose against them anytime we fight them. They always give up a good fight, but this time we did come out victorious, and it was a great way to start the season with a win. As we're continuing to learn this tactic and see 7 stars and more rank 5s on the map, I think this is going to be an interesting season. Even though we only took 4 fights this war, I think there's going to be some interesting matchups coming up. I do have iDoom ranked up now, for example. He may be making an appearance. Maybe some of my other 7 stars, who knows. But anyway, that's going to take it to the end of this video. Thanks for watching. Please tune in for more Alliance War gameplay as we continue this season, and I'll catch you in the next one.